Now that we've gotten through some administrative stuff, we're free to dive into our first technical discussion. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief discussion of why we care about server-side rendering and what problems it's meant to solve. Let's begin by doing a quick review of how a traditional React application works in the browser. I'm going to use that term, by the way, traditional React application, many times throughout this course. Whenever you hear me say traditional React application, I'm talking about a React app that is not rendered on the server. It's a normal React application that is only rendered in the browser. So again, we're going to do a quick review on how a traditional React application works inside the browser. Now in this review, I want to focus on a very specific period of time here, like a very specific part of the life cycle of a traditional React app. I want to review on how React works in the time between a user entering some URL into the address bar of their browser and then the user actually seeing some content appear on their screen. To get a better sense of this time period inside of here, I've taken the liberty of generating a brand new, very vanilla React application. And here it is running inside my browser. I have my request log open on the right-hand side here. We're going to refresh the page, and then we're going to take a look at some of the requests that are being issued before any content appears on the screen. So I'm going to refresh the page, and we see a handful of requests being created inside of my request log here. Now there are two requests in particular that I want to kind of zero in on and do a little bit of inspection on. The first is the root request to my running server that's at localhost 3000. You'll see it appear here as simply localhost. If we inspect this request, you'll see that we are getting a response of a bunch of HTML. And if we take a look at this HTML, it is a very sparse HTML document. There's a little bit of content inside the head tag. There is essentially no content inside the body except for a no script tag. And then also very importantly, a script tag to load up some JavaScript files. With this script tag right here, it causes our browser to make a second follow-up request to our running server and fetch this bundle.js file, which presumably contains all of the code of our React application. So really, we are not getting any content to appear on the screen until these two requests are completed. If we put this entire process into a flow diagram, we might end up with something that looks a little bit like this. So we're essentially saying that to get some content on the screen, our browser makes a request for some document, we wait, we eventually get back an HTML document that tells our browser that it needs to go fetch some JavaScript file in order to show the page. The browser makes a follow-up request for that JavaScript file, and then we wait again until we receive that entire JavaScript file. And then finally, boom, we get some content visible on the screen. This, of course, is the most straightforward approach possible that we're looking at right here. If, say, for some reason our React app needs to fetch some particular data before rendering itself, like say maybe a list of blog posts or a list of pictures, then we can end up with a flow that looks a little bit more like this right here, where we get the initial page, we then get the JavaScript file, we then have to fetch some JSON data from our backend server, and then only after these three round-trip requests can we get some content visible on the screen. Now this is clearly not the most efficient solution in the world in terms of getting content in front of a user as quickly as possible. We have three round-trip requests here before we can get any useful information up on the screen for the user to look at. Now, in the real world, this is a pretty big problem. There are countless articles published online from companies like Amazon or Walmart or other big retailers that have proven that loading up a page as quickly as possible leads to improved conversion rates and increased user satisfaction. Therefore, it's really in our best interest as engineers to figure out some way to condense down this loading process to be as quickly as possible. And so enters server-side rendering as a solution to this problem. So I want you to understand right now from the first video that the entire goal of server-side rendering, as we are going to approach it, is to make sure that we are getting content visible on the user screen as quickly as possible. We don't want to make these 3 round-trip requests before any content appears for the user, we want to make one request and then, boom, have some content visible that the user can start to read and understand and start to enjoy our application. Okay, so this is a quick review of why we might care about server-side rendering at all and why we run into issues with traditional React applications. So let's now take a quick break and continue in the next video and start to discuss how server-side rendering solves this problem.